Susquehanna River. World-renowned smallmouth bass fishing. These fish are built differently. Woo! This event was the 6th stop for the Hobie BOS. We had the opportunity to fish against Bassmaster Classic champion and MLF pro Mike Iaconelli. All right, guys and gals, I'm still here right on the beautiful Susquehanna River in Pennsylvania. Just wrapped up my tournament and I am super stoked to share this recap with you guys. I had just come off a big win at the KBF on Lake Hartwell last week, and my main goal was to carry that momentum into this tournament and keep that rolling. So let's dive into the Susquehanna. I had never set foot on this river. I didn't know much about it. The section of the river that we were allowed to fish was from Sunbury all the way down to Harrisburg, about a 40-mile stretch. So knowing that, and also knowing that the river was extremely low, I decided that in practice, I was going to do 2 big floats, get my eyes on a lot of the river, and try to kind of understand what these fish were relating to. Because I fished a lot of rivers. The last 3 years, I fished a lot of rivers in the Northeast. The New River, the James River being 2 of my absolute favorites. And I wanted to see if anything that I'd learned there would translate over to the Susquehanna. Our weather was calling for a little bit of rain. I was hoping that the river would be on a slow rise and there might be a little bit of color. That really would play into my wheelhouse. I like to throw a spinner bait or a chatter bait on these rivers for these big smallmouth. When I first got here, I learned that this river is so wide that in doing these big floats, it was almost a disservice because I wasn't able to fish across these shoals and ledges and work my way back. I mean, this thing was literally a mile wide in some places. So on my last day of practice, what I decided to do, I picked a small section where I caught some bigger fish in practice and decided to go and just literally kind of pick it apart. And I don't mean by fishing. What I did is I took my full length paddle, I stood up and paddled my pro angler and did a lot of wading just to kind of get eyes on some of these areas and kind of understand where these fish were, what they were relating to. And what I found out is that the bigger fish seem to be solitary and roaming super shallow banks with that fist-sized rock and gravel. I didn't see any of the big smallmouth on shale, and ironically enough, and a lot of the eddies and the ledges and the faster moving current, I was catching a lot of like 14 to 16, maybe a couple 17-inch fish, but I wasn't really finding my big size there. So it seemed like a lot of your numbers, your cookie cutter fish, were in that deeper, faster current along the ledges, along the shoals, but my big fish were isolated, roaming these shallow banks. There were a couple banks that had these small troughs in them that I would go up to, and I would strategically use my fish finder, run all of these banks along the section I wanted to float, and drop waypoints right on these areas of the bank where there'd be a very subtle trough where a fish would be hanging out in. So my goal in that was I wanted to be able to intentionally go to these banks, make a couple casts directly at that trough, far enough away to where I couldn't see it, but I knew it was there because of my waypoint, and cover as much water as possible. So day 1, that is exactly what I had planned to do. So my day plan here, I didn't exactly know where I was going to float to, but I knew I was going to do a big float. My first spot I was going to start on was a series of shoals, a little faster current, to try to get a few fish quickly and hopefully fill out a limit, maybe get a bigger bite, float down to the next spot, which was a deeper shoal. Then I had a set of old railroad bridges. Then I had some stretches of bank, and then I was going down to a couple of ledges that had some bigger fish around there as well. So let's go into day one and get a glimpse of what that looked like.
We're gonna do a big float today, probably like 12-13 miles. I'm gonna junk fish, hit a few spots that I caught some good fish, and see how it goes. Good luck, guys.
Good luck.
They're jumping everywhere. Saw a big one right there yesterday. Yep, so I'm not fishing that. Good way to start. That's as good an omen as any.
Yes, it is. I ain't got so many bait, so.
And ploppers aren't cheap. No. I don't know if the smallmouth in this river like color, but I gotta switch up what I'm doing just a bit. This water's pretty stained. I'm gonna add a little Z-Man spinner just to give it a a little extra. They might, like I said, they might have just moved completely out of here too. I don't know. But add just a bit of color. I doubt those fish are in here. We got to give it a shot though. Alright. Couple more casts with our spinnerbait around. I don't think they're in here. We moved out of it. And it's going to be really hard to fish with all this. There's a bunch of floating eelgrass looking stuff. Can't do that. Let's go find that color change to fish that a bit. I think it's right over here. Alright, that's my 5th fish. So do I try to hole here or start throwing big baits and try to... So at this point I am literally junk fishing. Literally junk fishing.
So I ended up floating 14 miles on day 1. My goodness, what a huge waste of time. Spent hours just kicking. I was exhausted, fatigued, tired. That was entirely too much time wasted just floating. I started to just literally junk fish. I didn't stick with my gut. I fished sloppy. I lost 2 big fish on a whopper plopper first thing in the morning. That really hurt me, kind of frazzled me a little bit, and the rest of my day I just didn't have it. So after day 1 I had 79 inches. I was only 9 inches out of the lead, but in a smallmouth tournament every quarter inch counts, and that hurt. Just one of those big fish would have put me right up there with the lead. And that's always frustrating, but we all lose fish. That's just part of it. So knowing this, knowing I was sitting in 33rd place, 9 inches out of the lead, I knew I had to completely change what I was doing going into day 2, and I had to target those big fish. So starting day 2, I decided to limit my float, maybe stick with 5 miles or so of the river, specifically go after those big fish that I'd seen cruising the banks. And how I intended to do that, I wasn't really sure. I knew that the bigger fish seemed to be going after those big topwaters, but after losing 2 on the whopper plopper, I decided I was going to put a big buzzbait on with a Stanley Jigs ribbit frog as a trailer and see if I could get him to eat the buzzbait. Keeping my head up, having a fresh mindset, going big or going home was my motto. Let's go into day 2.
All right, day 2, starting on the same spot. Not gonna float today. We've got about 9 more people at my ramp than were here yesterday, but that's part of it. Gonna fish and see what we can do. I've got several different baits tied on. I'm going with a buzz bait and a little Rico over the plopper. Let's see how that goes today. That's a nice smallie. Oh. You see the wake from that thing? Holy cow. It's a beautiful fish. Let's go, guys. Let's go. All right. I don't know why I flipped that. I just did a terrible boat flip of a 17-incher. Nope, I'm not ready to give him the jig yet. They're eating the buzzbait. Big fish. Oh God. Yes! Oh. Look at that, you guys. $18 3/4. Thank you. All right. I'm sitting in second right now. I gotta keep getting these big bites. So what's crazy, I've never fished this area. Never even had eyes on it. As soon as I had those two fish come off a wood over there and chase this buzzbait, I saw this bank and it had a bunch of wood on it. That's way too fishy not to have a fish on it. It's got a little indentation on the bank so the fish can get out of the current. Gotta be a fish there. Yes! That's a big pole.
Man, did that pay off. I stuck with my gut, I committed to that buzzbait, and I really put together a pattern on tournament day. As soon as I kind of started missing a few fish and getting a few big bites, I learned that my big fish were indeed along the bank, and they were really keying in on the wood. So after I figured that out, I took that buzzbait, started running banks, actually went to entirely new water that I didn't even see in practice, specifically went to that any piece of wood I could find, committed to that buzzbait, had 4 big fish right off the bat in the morning, was able to get my 5th fish on that old railroad bridge, and then cold, I had a big coal along a shady bank that I marked a little trough in practice, flipped the jig in there, got a 2-inch upgrade. I had the second biggest limit of day 2, 87.5 inches of big, mean river smallmouth. That was enough to catapult me into the top 12, cashed a check, ended up in 6th place, less than 5 inches away from the leader, cashed me a check. Bonus, I beat Iaconelli. He did finish in the money, which is incredible for his first time fishing a professional level kayak tournament. Guys, we had 112 anglers from 21 states, literally the very best in our sport, including some phenomenal local river anglers here, were fishing this tournament. It was one of the most stacked fields in our series that we've ever seen. And Ike really fished hard, showed out, and cashed a check in his first kayak tournament. That just goes to show how incredible of an angler he is. He fished sun up to sundown in practice. It's that guy's an animal. So it was an absolute honor to compete against him. I seem to always elevate my game when the pros fish our events. It's always an extra incentive to try to really work hard. So overall, awesome tournament to me. What I learned here, I had a game plan. I knew what the big fish were doing from day 1, but after losing a couple, I kind of got a little frazzled and didn't stick with what I knew I should have done. But I was able to keep it together, go out on day 2 and literally smash them. It really shows that you have to have the ability to adapt on the fly. You really have to be able to be aware of your surroundings and be able to change what you think you need to do and adapt to what the fish are telling you need to do. And I was able to do just that, make a huge comeback, and cash a check in this series. So that felt really good. Absolutely beautiful fishery. For river fish, these fish fight harder than any smallmouth I've ever encountered. As you all know, I've smallmouth fished all over the country. So it was an absolute blast being here. I'm packing the truck up. Got to make the 15-hour drive back to La Crosse, Wisconsin for the BASS Kayak Open on La Crosse. So looking forward to that one. Hopefully I can keep this momentum and this check streak going. Go tackle the mighty Mississippi River. So thank you guys for watching so much. Thank you to all my sponsors, my friends, my family, each and every one of you for supporting me, believing in me, and lifting me up, pushing me to continue to defy the odds and change this narrative that girls can't catch fish on their own. So I appreciate y'all very much. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for La Crosse.